All right, glad to have you back. In a bid to boost the agricultural sector, engender food security, stabilize the economy, create employment, and reduce reliance on crude oil, the federal government, through the Central Bank of Nigeria, created the Uncle Borrowers program as an intervention to create economic linkages between smallholder farmers and reputable companies anchors involved in this production and processing of key agricultural commodities across the country. Since the commencement of the scheme in 2015, the CBN reported that it has so far disbursed a sum of 864 billion naira to 4.1 million farmers, cultivating 5.02 million hectares of land under its Anchor Borrowers scheme. But 6 years later, some farmers and extension workers in some states appear to see the program as a cash cow, as there are too many defaulters whose actions are threatening the sustenance of the program, as 240 billion naira is yet to be recouped by the Apex Bank. Following the reports that the country records 38 trillion naira yearly to post-harvest losses, the big question begging for answer now is, how do we justify the massive investments made by government in the agricultural sector? Well, I'm not doing this alone as usual. A researcher and agribusiness economist, Dr. Matthew Ojo, joins me now from the UK. Good afternoon, Dr. Ojo. It's good to see you.
Good afternoon, Tolu. It's nice to be back here.
Yes, I'm going to start with the Anchor Borrowers scheme. Looks very good on paper when you see the figures and how many people impacted by this initiative by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, as a professional in this space, take us through your first reaction to this. Is that the way to go?
Well, let me start by saying that the Anchor Borrower scheme, like you read in your intro, a very wonderful initiative, well-intentioned, and I must tell you, whether we like it or not, has impacted positively in the agricultural space since the inception of the program. The unfortunate part of it that we are seeing now, however, should not take that aspect away from whatever we are discussing. We only want to find out why we are having these challenges. But I would say it's something that is peculiar to our society. As well-intentioned as this is, you first need to understand why was it brought about. You have smallholder farmers who are suffering from being linked to big companies that are into production and processing. So CBN comes up with this, an initiative that will economically link smallholders to major off-takers, in this case anchors. We call them anchors, big companies. And then you have service providers, you have insurance, you have state government, all in that space to ensure that smallholder farmers are able to increase their output, then be able to solve the issue of instability we're having in food prices. But then you have a situation where many people don't still understand that it is what they return back to the central purse that is taken out also to others. Unfortunately, you have this program coming in, and then some areas are not being implemented properly. You know, when you give loan as a former banker, you can almost tell a loan that will go bad. Maybe when you see that some processes are not being followed properly. So you can look at that from the point of implementation. When you come to the area of farmers, you have farmers who see this money as national cake. It is not national cake. But then we have to understand that it's not as if farmers are giving money directly. What happens is that you have a service provider who does for the farmers what the farmers need to produce. For example, it can be maybe mapping of the farm, providing input and all that. And then the participating financial institutions, they pay the service provider. But you have this collusion where you have corruption everywhere. And that is why we're having this level of default. You also have insurance that are supposed to come in and ensure that in cases where you have farmers suffer loss as a result of natural disasters or whatever, this can pay back what is lost. But that angle also is not being properly implemented. As you know, a few months ago, you had I think it was the Bank of Agriculture CEO that was talking about that aspect. So you have so much outside not coming back. And if that is not coming back, it's going to affect other farmers who are supposed to benefit from this program. For me, I think it's going to be a kind of iterative process, because you can see recently, I think it was in September, that the CBN had to review the guidelines for anchor borrower scheme. It's going to be like that because you have human beings who think they are smart. I've seen situations while we're working with farmers where an outgrower, an anchor, made money available to farmers, and farmers planted what he wanted, what the company wanted. It was time to sell back to the anchor. Because they found out that the price of the commodity has gone up elsewhere, they took the product, their commodities, and sold elsewhere. So you see, that is not government now. That is not from the anchor now. It's from farmers themselves who refuse to keep the contractual agreements. Then you also have the issue of not even pricing commodities properly, simply because you are facilitating funds for farmers, and then you don't give them prices that are competitive enough. That makes it also tempting for them to want to go and sell their produce outside. So you have all these various challenges. However, for me, it's something that can be surmounted. We need to learn iteratively from what is happening. If it takes us reviewing the guidelines every now and then, fine, such that the actual benefit is not lost just on the table of loan defaulting. That has to be addressed properly.
Follow-ups. Staying with the scheme, it's designed to boost agricultural yields, of course, and halt large volume of food importation and address negative trade balance. But at the moment, inflation for food is still on the high side, and even prices of food continues to skyrocket. So what are we getting in this as Nigerians?
You see, we've mentioned, I think we've discussed this before, Tolu. And there are so many dynamics that play from the point of production to when you and I go to the market to buy these commodities or this food. Because if you just look at production, what CBN is doing through the anchor borrower scheme is to boost output, okay? Make it possible for food to be available. From what you've heard the CBN governor say over time, the anchor borrower scheme is covering up to about 21 different crops just to ensure that we have availability. But when it comes to food prices or food inflation, that's a different ballgame because it all has to do with value addition and how that value addition is priced. So when you have something produced at the farm, it has to get to where it is eventually consumed, and all the value that is added right from where it was produced to where it is consumed informs what eventually comes out to be the price of what you are buying. And you did talk about post-harvest losses. All this, when you have produced so much and you lose about half of what you've produced because of improper handling, what is left will be sold to be able to recoup what was used in producing. And so you see the price of food will naturally go up. So it's a little bit tricky, but production is different from when it comes to what contributes to the food prices or a hike in food prices that we're experiencing in Nigeria. Once we understand the dynamics and it's addressed, we will be able to tackle them one after the other. For example, let's since you mentioned post-harvest losses at the beginning, let's go into it. When you produce, post-harvest handling or losses is curtailed from the point of how you harvest. The harvesting has to be done properly, and then from harvesting, you now talk about things you do after harvesting, and then you talk about storage. So if you have harvested properly or harvested properly, you have to ensure that what you've harvested is also packaged properly and then transported in the right form for it to get to where it will either be bought or where it will be stored further. So this is where we have a gap. First is the cost of moving what is produced to where it is either purchased or stored. Second, it is how these products are moved from the point of production to where they are needed for consumption, processing, or storage. And if you don't address that middle point, proper packaging and also proper transportation and cost-effective transportation, prices will go up when it eventually gets to the market.
Dr. Ojo, yes, you already talked on post-harvest losses, which was very, very important too. It's part of our discussion for today. But farmers are also still faced with insecurity. That's also a big elephant in the cupboard, which affects productivity one way or the other, and even means to pay back these loans. Where we hear of live videos of people saying that they need to pay bandits at times before they can go to their farms. What then happens to this? Because, of course, food security seems to be far from us as a country. What do you think?
Yeah, I did mention the aspect of the anchor borrower scheme had one of the stakeholders as the insurance company. In cases where you have this kind of issues, where you have disaster, something that is not as a result of the farmers not willing to pay back, that's where the insurance company is supposed to come into play. But you have that aspect also not properly processed or handled, and probably with the premiums and all that ought to be paid to the insurance company was not paid. It then becomes difficult for the farmer to pay back, and insurance that is supposed to come to the aid of helping to pay back the losses can't come forth. So that also is why I was saying that you have a good program, well-intentioned. This is supposed to help boost output, but once processes are not followed, once you have connivance, once you have a cutting of corners, it becomes problem. When you give someone a loan, we always talk about, I think, the 4 C's of lending. One of the C's, apart from collateral, is the character to pay back. There are farmers who have the character to pay back what they've collected, but maybe natural disasters and this insecurity have affected them. Those ones, maybe if you look at them in terms of percentage, it might just be small compared to those who have the money, but they don't have the character to want to pay back because they're seeing it as national cake. Agreed, farmers are still facing challenges. And the truth is, part of the challenges they are facing is that some of them are not even able to access this anchor borrower scheme in the first place. Because those who are not supposed to accessed it. When we're doing our studies, we went to two CBN offices in the Southwest, went to the Development Finance Department, and we found out that there are some group of people who gather themselves and call themselves farmers. We call them political farmers. They were not real farmers. And some of them access these funds. And I'm sure they will be part of those who are not able to pay back currently. So it's understandable that there will be challenges farmers are facing. But if this program is followed as it is intended to by the CBN, I'm telling you, farmers will benefit very well. The food prices we are complaining about will come down, and then we'll be able to see the effect. But when you don't have people following things as it ought to, that's why we are saying where we are now. People want to be wiser at times and think the government has brought money, and if you don't use it properly, you can't get the result, unfortunately.
Before I let you go, Dr. Ojo, capacity building is very important in the agricultural space, particularly at this time where everyone talks about youths getting very active in agriculture. We saw a lot of them even outside the country during exhibitions and on platforms where they can showcase what they have. We can see that we have young Nigerians interested in playing very, very actively in Nigeria's agricultural space. How better can we make agriculture attractive for them? I'd like to ask you this question so that you let us understand how youths can easily and willingly move into that space.
It's interesting that youths are beginning to look at agriculture, because I know for sure that if you take 100 graduates of agriculture and ask how many of them willingly chose agriculture, you'll be shocked to see that only maybe just 5 or 10% of them actually chose agriculture as their first choice. Many of them chose medicine and were all shipped down to study agriculture. Now, the interesting part of it is you have youths that are beginning to show interest. And one of the major challenges they face, ab initio, is this issue of fund to be able to come and play fully in the agricultural space. However, we shouldn't make the mistake that agriculture is just about production. It's a value chain. If you are not producing, you can facilitate. You can act in the area of marketing. You can act in the area of processing. You can even act in the area of packaging. So that entire value chain is long enough to accommodate youth, and that is why it's becoming attractive. My own suggestion is this: the government sorry, we still have to go to government in any way, even though you call on most governments and you don't get responses. But then state government can take advantage of this. Don't say because you want to, what you have happening most of the time is they say we want to boost agriculture. And all you just do is just, here is the land, go and cultivate. No, because the young minds have their own approach. They want to employ technology. They want to maximize the use of technology to boost agriculture. And that has to be encouraged right from the state government level. My take is that the federal government is doing something fine, but state government, commissioners, I keep on saying this, commissioners of agriculture in states are all into this. They should see their position beyond political position. You are responsible for ensuring food security in your state, and there are youths who need jobs. Find a program to bring them in, train them, empower them, and see how that space will change drastically from one state to another. That, I think, is something we can do. It is doable. Unfortunately, whether the state governments have the will or the vision to do this, that remains a big question to be answered.
Brilliant submission as usual there. I've been speaking to researcher and agri-business economist there, Dr. Matthew Ojo, who joined us from the UK. Thank you so much. And of course, do enjoy the rest of your day. We don't have enough time to talk about issues around that sector. I know you have more, but next time we'll take it up from where we stopped.
Thank you very much. Nice having you.